Hi, my name is Clark Smith, and I've been making wine since 1977. But this is one of the most interesting projects that I've ever undertaken, and since 2007 I've been the winemaker for Diamond Ridge up in Lake County, and we're just releasing these new wines under the label Two Jakes of Diamonds. Where does that name come from? Jake Stevens and his father, he's Jake III, and his father, Jacob II, were Arizona cotton farmers back in the 90s, and they came to California and started growing grapes, found this miraculous site. It's really sort of amazingly combines all of the natural features of Lake County. Now, Lake County, the lowest point is the lake itself, which is about 1,400 feet, and this vineyard is on a peninsula right jutting out into the lake, and so it starts at 1,800 feet, goes up to about 2,400 feet, so almost half a mile in altitude, which means that the air is thinner and we get bright sunlight that brings out color and tannin, and it's on decomposed granite, sort of volcanic soil that gives the wines this intense sort of minerality. Now, the problem with Lake County is that intense sunlight has a tendency to bake off the aromas, so we get these wonderfully colored and structured wines that often are lacking in aromatics. But that's not the case at this vineyard, because at 3 o'clock in the afternoon there's a wind that comes in off the lake and cools everything down.
The wind breeze picks up over the lake and comes over the hill here, about 1.5 miles from where we're located, and begins to cool this ranch off. This morning, in fact, it was 47 degrees at 6 a.m.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, and 2 days ago it was 43. So we get variations of 40 to 50 degrees daily in the summertime here. We carry our jackets in our vehicles at all times for that reason.
So what you're saying is you basically have a mountain here at like 1,800 feet or so?
High point here is 2,200 feet. Low point is around 1,500.
Okay, and but it's actually almost like a mountain shoved out into that southeast corner of the lake.
Exactly. The lake actually forks on the east end down here and comes around, sweeps around on the north side and the south side of the vineyard. So ergo the lake effect coming in on a daily basis.
Yeah, I can smell it.
So that combination of intense sunlight and that cooling lake effect develops and retains incredible, rich red fruit aromatics. And so Jake decided, he's a real experimenter and sort of an explorer, and so he decided he didn't know which was the right Cabernet clone to plant there, so he planted all of them, and we have 15 clones. It's the largest clonal library for a commercial vineyard anywhere in the United States. And for over a decade, we've been supplying Cabernet, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and Petite Sirah to many wineries in Napa and Sonoma, and getting a lot of awards. I wish I could tell you who the wineries were, but we've sort of been their secret weapon over the years. And so now we've decided to release our own brand, Cabernet, Merlot, Petite Sirah, and Cabernet Franc. I've been making Cabernet Franc since 1993. It's a very challenging grape. For those of you who aren't really familiar with what Cabernet Franc is, it's the father of Cabernet Sauvignon. I think of it as being sort of older and wiser. Cabernet Sauvignon can be big and well-muscled. It's sort of, sometimes they say it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Cabernet Franc is more like Jamie Lee Curtis. A few more, has a lot of depth, a lot more floors on the elevator. So most of the Cabernet Francs that I've made have had to be blends. First of all, Cabernet Franc is extremely vigorous, and so you have to grow it on a limiting site, and there are several ways of getting that vine to struggle. If you grow on real rocky soils, you have a tendency to make a wine that's really macho and tannic and well framed, but without a lot of fruit. And so in other situations, we'll cut back the canopy and open it up and grow a lot of cover crop to compete with the vine. And then we get wines that are much more feminine, almost like Grenache with a lot of plums, but not so much structure. And so then I've been blending those wines together, and I never thought I'd find a complete Cabernet Franc in one place, and yet here it is. The unique combination of that very porous, decomposed granite volcanic soil that does force the vine to put its vigor into the root system and give us all this sort of mineral energy. And the lake effect of the vineyard being right next to Clear Lake gives us a lot of bright red fruit. So let's, as you'll see, it's a very pretty color, but not as dark as we would normally expect from a Cabernet Sauvignon. The other thing about Cabernet Franc is it takes a long time to age. And so this is a 2011, and it's got decades to go. But it's already giving us this bright, I call it a white cherry sort of aroma. And then there's a little bit of sage, because it's very dry up there, and so we get a little of the sort of droughty herbs that are around there. No bell pepper, though. That bright, intense sunlight keeps us from getting vegetal aromas, but we do get the Cabernet Franc characteristic herbal aromas, sage or maybe rosemary. And then there's just a beginning emerging bouquet. It's very hard to describe. It's very sexy, a little bit like aged Romano cheese or truffle or something like that. Maybe an umami kind of character. And then what really characterizes Cabernet Franc in general, and this one in particular, is the incredible energy that's in the mouth. This is a terrific wine for fruit preparations like pork and cherries or duck à l'orange. I love it with barbecued duck breast. And then that mineral energy is also associated with age worthiness, and so that wine's going to last for a good 10 or 15 years in a decent cellar. Up at Diamond Ridge, we grow really extraordinary Merlot. It's not really what people are expecting from Merlot. Merlots are thought to be soft, and they're usually they have a little bit of tea or bell pepper, a little vegetal side. Because of the bright sunlight up there, we don't get any of that at all, but we do get amazing color and quite a bit of structure, more than many Cabernets. So there's a big, rich tannic structure to them. I've been taught, and I love to play with those tannins, the way a chocolate maker will turn cocoa powder into chocolate. That's in the chocolate industry, that's called conking, and when we do it, we call it microbullage or micro-oxygenation. So I bring a very tiny, continuous amount of oxygen to the wines to kind of romance the tannins, and this one really benefits from that process. So you end up with lots of tannin, but very refined, and when we do that, it integrates the aromas together so that the wine is very soulful. The nearest place on earth that I know to this vineyard in terms of the type of wine that Merlot turns into is Pomerol in France, where the greatest of the French Merlots, like Chateau Petrus and Trotanoy. This wine really reminds me of them. First of all, it has a just intense pomegranate or grenadine red fruit. aroma. We do give it a couple of years in neutral cooperage, so it is not it's not oaky at all in the nose, but there's little nuances of spice, and maybe you can find a trace of vanilla in there. But mostly it's just this rich grenadine, almost like grenadine syrup in the nose. And then the mouth is just this massive but very delicate tannin, very fine and deep. You can tell this wine it's extremely fresh right now, has some of that nice minerality to it. Not as much as the Cabernet Franc, but certainly some, and it also has a nice fatness to it that characterizes the best Merlot. And all that tannin is just sitting right on top of the tongue, a little bit hard at this stage, which is telling us that wine's going to age for a good long while. This is a perfect wine for red meat, for steak. If you're a vegetarian, I'd do it with a ratatouille or eggplant parmesan. Loves tomatoey sauces and cheeses. And it doesn't have very much alcohol. It's about 13.7. And so we get this long-lasting finish that's just loaded with that rich pomegranate fruit. Just about every clone that's available, about 15 different clones of Cabernet up at the ranch, and they all have different flavors and characteristics, but my personal favorite is clone 15 because it has wonderful tannin, but also just tons of black cherry fruit. So it makes a nice big muscular wine with a little bit of chocolate to accent that cherry. And this is one of those wines that just everybody loves. You can see it's got terrific color and man, just overwhelming rich black cherry in the nose. I think you'll be a little surprised at the grace of the tannins in this wine. There's plenty of tannin, and you can tell it's going to age for a good long while. But that tannin is well formed and just sitting on the top of the tongue, and quite delicious. This thing is begging for a steak. Pretty rich food. It also would be wonderful with a well-aged black diamond cheddar cheese. And you would be forgiven if you even sat that down with a nice Cuban cigar after dinner. Now, as much as I love making Bordeaux varieties off Diamond Ridge vineyards, sometimes we just look at each other and Jake and I just say, maybe we ought to just tear it all out and just grow Petite Sirah. This is probably the best place on the planet to grow Petite Sirah. Petite Sirah is a challenging grape for a number of reasons. It comes from France, but it doesn't do very well in France because it's too much rain there. And Petite Sirah, the clusters look like a hand grenade. They're very, very tight, and they're thin-skinned, and so the stuff will rot very easily. But we don't have that problem up in Diamond Ridge, partly because we have such great air movement, and partly because of the intense UV from the nice direct sunlight up there. And so we get that suppresses the rot, but it also gives us unbelievable color. And just wait until I pour this for you. You're not going to believe what it looks like. We like to call it purple haze. look at this. It's just about the richest red wine you can imagine. Now, you can grow wonderfully colored Petite Sirah all over Lake County, and people do. But the thing that's special about this one is that we're right next to the lake, and so those fruity and flowery aromas that are created by that direct sunlight don't burn off because they're all retained by that cooling lake effect. And so when you put your nose in here, you get there's three things. You have, again, that little sage or rosemary that comes from the surrounding vegetation is just there, but right up front, it's just packed with blueberries. And then the way you can tell that it's a cool site is that on top of the blueberries is this, I don't know, it's both intense and delicate at the same time, but there's this lavender florality to the wine that just makes it extremely sexy. Now, that color is related to the fineness of the tannins. When tannins get coarse and harsh, and that's a big problem with Petite Sirah, they form long chains which interact with our salivary protein and make a harsh, coarse, grainy sort of tannin. And a lot of Petite Sirahs are just sort of hard to drink because of that. But the anthocyanin pigments, the color molecules, can't polymerize, and so they're like the bookends on the polymer. And the more color we have, the shorter the chains are. And this thing has the most amazing, fine, silky, feminine tannin that you can imagine. You know, that tannin is like oil. It's just very rich and dense and plush, and very feminine. And so there's no harshness to the wine. And then all that intense blueberry is sitting right on top of that tannin, and the tannin supporting those flavors instead of getting in the way of them. You know, restrained alcohol, so it has this long finish, and just seems to, that fruit and florality just seems to go on forever. So this is the wine you want. You know, if you've got time to sit down and contemplate a beautiful Cabernet Franc on a Sunday afternoon, then that's what you should do. But this wine is a nice big back rub of a wine for 5:45 on a Friday when you've had a hard week and you just need somebody to be generous and nice to you, and that Petite Sirah will do it. Now, I want to stress that these are very small production wines. We sell almost all of our grapes, and we just make a couple hundred cases of different varietals, just kind of to show off what we can do. We like to pour these wines for our winemaker clients so that they can understand what can be done with our grapes. And you're certainly not going to find them in Safeway or any kind of national distribution because we're so tiny, and so we just sell everything direct to the consumer, and just really mostly make them for bragging rights.